How to Train Your Dragon is a unique trilogy, and it begins with this idea that change must happen. Man and dragon must learn to live together. And by the time you get to the third one, man and dragon go to live in two different worlds, and yet that's still a good and victorious ending. Welcome to Durbania, I'm Durbin, and this is my theological analysis for How to Train Your Dragon 3, The Hidden World, Change, Stepping Out into the Unknown. This video comes to you from Sarah Hicks, one of my patrons on Patreon. She suggested that I do this. I'm excited to dive into this, so Sarah, I want to say thank you so much for supporting Durbania and being a patron. If you like what I do here and you'd like to check out my Patreon page, the link for that is in the description. Yeah, sometimes change could be a little awkward or a little embarrassing, but other times it's pretty difficult, like where you have Hiccup and Toothless, two absolute best friends who have to say goodbye as they go to rule their own separate worlds. And they're still buds, and they're better off for it, and yet it's still difficult because it's not the same. Behold, I will do something new. Now it will spring forth. Will you not be aware of it? I will even make a roadway in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. Sometimes we feel lost in the wilderness and God says, I'll make a road in that wilderness so you'll know where to go. We feel just parched and thirsty in the desert. God says, I'll bring water to that desert and quench your thirst. God has made that promise to bring about new things in our lives and to provide for us and to guide us in that new direction that He has for us. I could look back in hindsight in my life and find something very interesting. And one season of my life, I could look back and see how He had been preparing me for the next season. So when I hit that transition and moved into the next season, I was prepared for it. Even though there were still plenty of things for me to learn and scary new things that I'd never seen before, in my heart, I was prepared for it. And yet, even in that season, God was preparing me for the one to come afterwards. But I didn't even realize that at the time while I was going through it. When I look at the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy, I see that picture throughout all three movies, especially in the friendship of Hiccup and Toothless, how they were being prepared for each change before each transition came. When you look at the first movie, you have Burke, and they dislike dragons. For them, dragons are a pest, and they're a pretty big problem. And you have these Vikings who define themselves by their exploits of strength, and they're big, Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger-like people who slay dragons and conquest.
They say that when he was a baby, he popped a dragon's head clean off of its shoulders. Do I believe it? Yes, I do.
And then you have Hiccup. That's literally his name, after a Hiccup.
What is he doing out again? What are you doing out? Get inside!
And he's this little shrimpy kid, man. No great big muscles, no huge exploits, and he's the son of the chief. He's supposed to take over leading, but he looks nothing like the ideal Viking and seems to embody none of the ideal Viking qualities. Yet, God created him unique and gave him a unique gift set because something new was about to happen. And by being created unique, he was already being prepared for a unique future. When you look at How to Train Your Dragon 3, something interesting about the bad guy.
Unlike you, when I was a boy and I came upon a night fury, I killed it where it slept.
I feel like that line indicates a parallel origin story where the bad guy killed his dragon, and look what it did to his heart. Here's the smart guy, he, creative and all of that. Now it's been poisoned, and he steals, kills, and destroys. He captures dragons, and he uses them to destroy dragons, and now that gift set is being used for evil.
That simple act of courage made me a hero in my village. So I decided to kill every last one.
It seems Hiccup could have gone that path, but he's a dude full of compassion. And when he had the chance to kill Toothless, instead he set Toothless free, and it created a friendship, and that friendship created a brand new future. Now, in that friendship, Hiccup had no idea. What he thought in his mind, this dragon is cool. I'll name him Toothless. And they become best buds. And he learns how to communicate with Toothless and talk with him. And he's learning how to communicate and talk with other dragons because of this. And this is what he sees. He sees himself getting a new best friend. And it's exciting. What's happening on the outside, though, is he's being prepared for the next season of his life when he becomes chief. Because he's learning how to be a leader and learning how to talk with dragons. He's learning how to communicate with the Burkians to teach them how to talk with dragons. In other words, he's leading them. He's being prepared for his next role as leader and chief of the Burkians. Now, what's also interesting about this trilogy is you have like all these story beats that mirror each other between Toothless and Hiccup. I mean, you have Toothless who loses a fin on his tail and Hiccup loses a foot. I mean, they have these weird beats where they just mirror each other. So you see that happening in this too. That as Hiccup is learning to communicate with dragons, you have Toothless learning to communicate with humans, learning how to be friends with humans. So it's working the other way as well. And by the time you get to How to Train Your Dragons 2, when Stoic dies, Hiccup is ready for this transition and ready to be a leader because he's already been leading. Yes, he's going to be thrown a curveball or two. He's going to have things to learn. He's going to stumble and fall, but he's been prepared for this in the last season of his life without even realizing it. All that ingenuity, all that creativity, all the giftings that he has, they have had a purpose. And now he gets to step out as chief and use that. And now you have this dragon, Toothless, who's learned love and friendship, humility and compassion through Hiccup, and he defeats the Alpha at the end of this and becomes king of the dragons. So now the king of the dragons is a king who is humble and compassionate and good. You get into How to Train Your Dragon 3, it's appearing that this is what everything has built to. This is the change that they've all been prepared for man and dragons to live together. Except for this, the big baddie of this movie shows us that mankind and dragons are not ready to coexist together. It's just not time yet. So then what has all of this been for? And now you have Hiccup, who has this entire island completely full of dragons. They free so many dragons that Burke has become a target for killers, stealers, and destroyers to come and get these dragons. So because of all the dragons and all the good and mercy they've shown, a time is now coming for another transition. They have to make another change. Kind of reminds me of Thor Ragnarok here, where they realize Asgard is not a place, it's a people. It's the same thing. Burke is not a place, it's a people. And so what he wants to do, Hiccup wants to do as the leader, is move everybody to the hidden world so they can be hidden from the rest of the world and thus live with the dragons. But that's not the picture that is to be fulfilled. Instead, what happens is you have Toothless who falls in love with the Light Fury. It's amazing how when a man meets a good woman, how much it makes that man want to change and be a better man. Toothless was already a good man / dragon. I mean, he was already good. But it's kind of like Adam and Eve. I wonder sometimes if Adam realized what he was missing and then God said, it's not good for man to be alone. And he made Eve and Adam went, oh no, it's not good for me to be alone. I'm kind of wondering if Toothless had that kind of revelation. When he meets the Light Fury, it's like, oh, it ain't good for me to be alone. This new desire rises up in his heart. And as this new desire rises up, new responsibilities come with that. Because you have this whole hidden world. And what this hidden world of dragons needs is their king. And they need their queen. And they need that strong, good, merciful, and compassionate leadership. Everything that Toothless has, all the giftings that he's been building up and storing up inside of him, now the entire hidden world of dragons needs. They need that leadership, and that leadership is going to change their world. And humans, they're just not ready to live with dragons yet. But here's what's interesting. When you look at it, picture this. What if Hiccup had actually killed Toothless? Well then, the hidden world would have been deprived of its true king. Who knows what would have happened with those other alphas? Hiccup probably would have grown up to be a great dragon slayer, just like our bad guy in How to Train Your Dragon 3. And here's what would have happened. Maybe the dragons would have moved on all to the hidden world, but they would have done so with a chip on their shoulder, bitterness growing in their hearts. Perhaps growing in numbers to return to the world to destroy the world of man. While man continued to grow in their fear and the shadow of dragons and would be more than happy to meet with them in battle and in war. There would never be any sort of peace. That's why How to Train Your Dragon 3 ends in victory. Because Toothless learned to love a human learned to love a dragon. And because of their friendship, because of that, they can see not all humans are bad, not all dragons are bad, and the dragons can go to their world with a good and fair leader and no bitterness, and the humans could go to their world spreading a new mythology, I guess. A new story that doesn't tie fear to the dragons, that has the ability to change things. And in that change, it was hard. It's hard to watch two best friends go to two separate worlds. And you can see they're still friends, but here's the interesting thing. If Hiccup had decided to be all clingy and not let his best bud go, it would have poisoned the relationship because of his clinginess. But because they both were mature and they both let change happen, it deepened their friendship and their bond.
Do you still believe in him?
Of course. I wish he did. But he thinks he's nothing without Toothless.
He defined himself by his friendship with Toothless, and he learned he can't define himself that way. And so it made everything better for them to let that change occur, and it probably changed this world. I could look back in my life, and it was hard to leave Ohio to California. It was hard to leave those friendships behind. But in doing so, it's deepened those bonds and it's made those friendships better. It's changed, yes, but it's better. I met my wife moving out here. It's better. I worked at a Christian rock station in Ohio, moved out to California and got a talk station job, which was kind of weird, but fun. Like, I never thought I'd do talk radio, but I enjoyed the job. But that brought me to one of my favorite jobs ever, which was a radio station that did Christian rock and talk radio. It's interesting how I could look back now and see how God was preparing me for each new season in the season before. And I don't even know what he's preparing for me now. But I'm telling you what, man, I love sitting here and doing this, and it's going to be exciting to see what God does with this and what he's preparing me for next. What I'm saying is, no matter where you are right now, don't fear. God has made a promise to bring water to your desert. He made a promise to bring a road through your wilderness. He's made this promise to do something new in your life. That something new might be a little bit scary, but with God, it's always good. It's always going to move in a better direction. Trust him. Learn to seek him and define yourself by clinging to him and having that relationship with him, and let him grow and mature those other relationships in your life as he guides you into that next phase. You don't have to be afraid. And one day you can look back with hindsight and be like, I can see now how he was preparing me for this next thing. What did you think of How to Train Your Dragon 3? Which is your favorite movie in that trilogy? Let's talk about that in the comments. While you're there, hit the subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Hit that bell by the subscribe button so you're notified for my next theological analysis, movie review, ranking video, or anything else I do here. And if you like what I do here, check out my Patreon page. Link is in the description. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.